Have you noticed that those who obediently play by the rules often end up empty-handed? The brutal truth is this: kindness without claws is not morality, it is weakness. This word does not operate on the beautiful ethics you were taught in school. It is a ruthless game of power, where naivety is always paid for in blood, sweat, and dignity. That is why Niccolò Machiavelli, one of the greatest and most controversial minds in political history, left behind a code but absolutely precise formula for survival: the era of the lion and the fox. Here, we do not learn how to become the villain. We learn how to shed the shell of naivety and put on the iron armor of wisdom, so that when you face malice, you will never be a victim again. So you think merely living honestly and dedicating yourself fully is enough to buy safety? Reality proves that this is the fastest recipe to become a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Before we learn how to sharpen our claws and seize control, we must look straight into the tragedy of the naive who harbor illusions about solitary strength. Absolute strength or solitary intelligence are both death sentences. Machiavelli once asserted, "A prince must imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves." Look at the reality of the corporate workplace or the high-stakes game of business. They are always individuals who play the role of a pure lion. They are people with outstanding professional capabilities, working with an integrity and bluntness that borders on the extreme. When they see injustice, they roar. They use hard power and their contributions to suppress others. But what usually happens to these heroes? The bluntness of the lion inadvertently creates countless enemies hiding in the shadows. One day, a tiny mistake by the lion is blown out of proportion by the crowd, trapped by anonymous emails, rumors, and distorted reports. The mighty lion falls not because it is weak, but because it is blind to sophisticated traps. It dies because it is too proud to look down at the ground. Conversely, look at those who choose to be a pure fox. These are the cunning, the sly, those who always know how to weave their way to claim credit and shift blame. They survive very well in times of peace. But when the pack of wolves arrives, that is, when the company falls into a severe crisis, or when a major life event demands someone to step up, take responsibility, and steer the situation, all eyes turn to the fox. But the fox has no authority, no weight of credibility, and certainly not enough courage to roar and protect anyone. The result? The fox is torn apart by the wolves or sacrificed by the very crowd it tried to manipulate. Extremes always lead to destruction. The lion is blind and the fox is cowardly. Do not try to combine them mechanically by being aggressive one moment and submissive the next. What you need is the art of synchronizing both identities within a single mind. If the mightiest lion can lose its life to a simple snare, what weapon will truly help you survive the worst crisis? The answer never lies in muscle. True strength in the art of survival begins with the ability to read people and forecast risks. That is when this noisy world needs the absolute stillness of the fox's eyes. Most people confuse wisdom with deceit. A true old fox never wastes energy setting traps. It uses its sharp vision to observe the chessboard. The most terrifying weapon of the fox in the modern world is not trickery, but the ability to neutralize the psychological manipulation and cognitive framing of others. Imagine you are in a tense meeting. A rival or a boss with ulterior motives suddenly praises you publicly in front of the team. This project is highly risky and no one has dared to take it, but I believe with your outstanding talent, you will definitely succeed. Do we all believe in them? The crowd claps. If you are naive, your hero complex will flare up. You proudly accept the project to prove yourself. But in that exact moment, the trap springs shut. Our mind, possessing the eyes of the fox, will see a completely different picture. The fox understands the concept of agenda setting. Others do not force you. They establish a context, an agenda, so you voluntarily walk to your demise. That praise is not a tribute. It is a trick of risk transfer. If the project fails, you take the fall. If it succeeds, The one who aside it takes the credit for their vision. So, what does the fox do? No need to rebel, no need to slam the table and refuse, risking the label of a coward. The fox stands still, takes a step back, smiles, and pushes the ball of responsibility right back. Thank you for your absolute trust. To ensure the success you expect, I will need you to directly review and approve the 3 most critical phases, as well as double the current budget. Do you agree to stand side by side with me on this? That is the fox. You do not need to expose your enemies. You peel back every layer of hidden motive behind their kindness and use their own momentum to lock them in. You just need to stay silent, smile, and let them break into a cold sweat, realizing that their game has been seen through. Seeing through deceitful media frames or manipulative tactics can help you dodge a blow. But if all you do is dodge, others will assume you are a permanent target incapable of fighting back. In any chess game of career, relationships, or power, passive defense is synonymous with suicide. To establish an untouchable boundary, you must awaken the instinct of the lion. This world does not respect unconditional meekness. It only respects power. There is a psychological paradox. If you always endure and forgive, people will not see it as generosity. They will see it as the baseline standard to continue trampling on you. The most terrifying lion is not the one frantically tearing at its prey. Someone who loses their temper and screams at the slightest provocation only proves they lack emotional control. The true lion is the one lying still, yet radiating a lethal aura. It represents a classic concept of power: deterrence. Let's take a practical example of a toxic negotiation. A partner constantly squeezes your margins, violates the contract, and oversteps boundaries because they think you need them and won't dare make a fuss. The more you concede, the further they push. This is when the roar of the lion must emerge, not in the form of vulgar bickering. The roar here is an act of calculated ruthlessness. You gather enough evidence of violations, you prepare a notice of termination or legal action, and you place it quietly on the negotiating table. You look your opponent dead in the eye, with a voice as cold as ice and absolute finality. This partnership stops here. For any damages from this moment on, my lawyer will deal with you. In that exact moment, the dynamic completely shifts. The bully's illusion shatters. They realize you are not a sheep. Let your enemies understand. You have the full capability to destroy their reputation and interests. You are merely choosing not to do so, provided they know their place. Deterrence is the highest form of violence. The greatest violence does not lie in the action itself, but in the enemy's fear that the punishing blow could land at any moment. When you establish deterrence, you do not even need to strike. The war ends itself. You may possess the cold analytical mind of the fox to see through schemes and the steel boundaries of the lion to crush disrespect. But does that combination turn you into a heartless dictator? The line between a brilliant strategist and a fragile tyrant is thinner than you think. Machiavelli's final secret was not meant to create cold-blooded power mongers. In truth, Machiavelli was sketching the blueprint of the perfect good person, encapsulated in the concept of virtù, flexible virtù. In this realm, your kindness does not stem from weakness or naivety. It is the choice of a superior. We often hear the phrase, "Be a good person," but what is a good person? A weakling, incapable of defending themselves, who dares not stand up against evil and beats their chest claiming to love peace. I'm sorry. That is not mercy. That is cowardice cloaked in morality. That person does not choose peace. They simply lack the capacity to wage war. But look at a true warrior. Someone possessing a sophisticated strategic mind, holding a sharp sword, capable of taking an enemy's life in the blink of an eye. Yet, ultimately, that person chooses to smile and sheath the sword. They choose to forgive when they could punish. They choose to help when they have the power to destroy. That is the pinnacle of morality. That is virtue. Kindness only holds true value when you are powerful enough to be ruthless, yet you refuse to be. You do not lose your true self. You retain a compassionate heart. You still believe in love and empathy. But now, you know how to wrap that heart in an impenetrable armor of iron. You learn to be a lion and a fox, not to hunt for prey, but to protect your core values and the people you love most from the wild beasts out there. Kindness is a priceless gift to humanity. But if misplaced, it ceases to be kindness. It becomes a fatal weakness for others to manipulate. Closing the book on the fierce power doctrines of history, it is time for you to make a decision for yourself. Continue being a victim or become the one who writes the rules. To survive in a world where others are constantly waiting to frame you as the weakling, naive kindness is not enough. Life, after all, always operates like a miniature political chess game. To avoid being eliminated from the board, remember the powers you hold in your hands. First, use the eyes of the fox to see through all invisible traps. Do not let anyone set the agenda and manipulate your mind with fake smiles. Second, use the quiet lethal aura of the lion to create the power of deterrence. When you possess the ability to destroy but choose to retract your claws, the world is forced to respect your boundaries. And finally, engrave the philosophy of virtue in your mind. Kindness was not born to endure being trampled upon. Kindness was born to be protected by cold intellect and sharp power. This word does not naturally dispense justice. You must be quiet and strong enough to force it to be just to you. Do not let others turn you into the prey in their story. Sharpen your claws and become the one who writes the rules. Does your stillness today lean more toward the deterrence of the lion or the sharpness of the fox? Leave a comment below so we can dissect it together. And if you are ready to upgrade your weapons, to learn how to see through every mask of hypocrites, hit the subscribe button and click right on the video appearing on the screen. Your metamorphosis has only just begun.